There is a sixth dimension beyond that which is known to man. A multiverse as vast as eternity, as timeless as the Infinity Gems. It is the middle ground between the big two and the indie publishers, between sci-fi and mysticism, and it lies between the pages of the reader's imagination. At the summit of entertainment, the dimension of comics, where a humble service is held. We call this service the Gospel of Comics.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Gospel of Comics. I am your host, the Church of Failure, and with me, as always, is my trusty co-host, Ayrton McCartney. How you doing tonight, buddy?
Oh, pretty good. I just half hour ago or about got home from an adult arcade that serves booze. So
I thought we just called those strip clubs.
that's besides the point.
Okay. All right. Well, we are also joined tonight by two very special guests. We have Archetype Comics, Seithon, I believe is how I'm supposed to pronounce this, and
Seithon, but it'll do.
Seithon. Okay.
There you go.
I told him I was going to end up calling him either Python or what was the other one? I don't know, but I'll probably end up calling him. After two whiskeys, it's all fair game. But we're also joined by RuneKnight, the writer for the Executioner. So, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight is a new comic that came across my Twitter timeline probably about little under a week ago. And I talked with a good friend of the show from Knuckle Suffer Studios. Talked to us about trying to get you guys on, and you guys were so gracious enough to stay up until after o'clock your time to join us. So I definitely appreciate that. Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Well, I'll go first. I am the one at after o'clock in the morning. It is currently 3:06 a.m. here in sunny Ireland. Wait, who am I kidding? It's wet. It's always wet. I am the owner of Archetype Comics, the producer and co-creator of our settings and our content. So you could say I'm a co-writer. I just do the fun bits, not the hard bits, which is what Joe does. And we have been working on Executioner on and off for the past 3 to 4 years, I think. Maybe even slightly longer. We started out as a bit of a concern. We wanted to make a comic which we called Mars Project. It didn't really get off the ground as well as we'd hoped, but from the team we assembled, I kept some artists around. We've been doing commission work for people over the last few years, and in between bits we've been working on our comic when we can, and now after some interactions on Twitter, we've decided to just push it out again and try and get the ball rolling on getting it actually published this time properly and into the hands of people who will enjoy it.
I am, excuse me, I am J.E. McKeever. I am the head writer and sometimes most often the only writer on Archetype Comics. And like all writers, I am a machine filled with caffeine, hatred, and being an irritant.
All right.
I can dig it.
Yeah. I always think when people talk about stuff like that, I always think about the old days of animation, where basically you had the animator's toolkit, which was a pack of cigarettes, a bag of coffee, and some caffeine pills.
Yeah, you see, the thing there is the cigarettes are expensive. Joe is far too poor for cigarettes.
Okay.
He can't afford that kind of habit. Yeah, he needs to get the writing monies in first, then he can start developing the fun activities after.
Yeah, no, I mean it's from music. It's quote into Death Clock. First you get the record deal, then you get the debilitating drug addiction.
Yes.
So what you're telling me is I've done it backwards. I need to go press a record first. Got it.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've got the cover for the Executioner up on screen here.
Yes, so you do.
Now, From what I've seen, and we're going to look at some more of this, this is just a beautiful book, first and foremost. From the artwork that I've seen, the cover, first off, not watercolors, I guess, but the paint style, like it actually looks like a painting as opposed to, flatter shaded colors and stuff like that.
That's exactly what we were going for with that one.
All right. Well, you accomplished it first and foremost. Now, you said you hadn't launched the campaign earlier when we were talking about the book off air. How much of the book did you want to have done before you went live? Like, what's your thought process on that? Because that's something we've been talking about with a lot of creators recently, and it varies from creator to creator, obviously, and project to project. So, what was your thought process behind how you're gonna do this?
Well, I suppose if I was to lay out what we have done right now, we have our prologue script complete. Prologue comic is currently being updated. That's the one you have in your hands at the moment. We're updating it to our newer art and putting in a few extra pages based on feedback we were given from nice folks who have, taken time to read it and send us their thoughts. As for the main comic itself, well, our plan is we've got our mailing list open on MailChimp. There's a sign-up button for it on the front page. I'm going to make a bit more of a splash so people can know exactly what they're getting when they click on it on our homepage, that they can sign up, get the 20-page prologue as it currently stands, and get signed up for notifications. And when we hit roughly about 100 to 200 people signed up on that, then we'll be comfortable putting that live. Because in our opinion, if we don't have a following or a fan base or anyone interested, there's no point in throwing it up live right now, Now, our goal is to hit that number in 2 months or less. So that's when we plan to, to put it live. 20 page.
All right. Well, I did just
now, as for preliminary work-wise, we have 120 pages written. There are going to be 30 pages in the first book, so we have all of the writing done. In fact, we've got so much writing done, we've got enough coming up for another arc still. I have just sent you the first page of rough for the first page of the first book. And, we plan to get at least half, if not all of the roughs done. I'm getting them done by a really good friend of mine who is doing them at a very, very low rate for me. So I'm able to finance that myself. Now, what actually does cost money for us is the line art, the backgrounds, and then the full coloring. So that we won't be doing until we get all the funds in place for that.
Okay. So you're going the direction of, oh shit, hold on.
Oh shit, here we go again.
We've been invaded, guys. What's going on, Poe? How's it doing, buddy?
Somebody just broke into the studio again.
I gotta get new locks. I gotta get new locks.
Release the hounds.
And of course, it's the black guy that broke in this time.
Of course it is.
Oh my god.
How's it going, Poe?
It's going good. It's going good. Yeah, just got a new mic.
You guys were all like, "Oh, we can't talk about certain things. We have to be polite. We have to obey the terms of service." And you're like, "No, here's the black guy breaking in."
I said you couldn't say the N-word, sir.
Still, it comes with certain connotations that there are other topics that are off table.
No.
Wait a minute. Do you mean we can't? Do you mean we can't talk about negativity?
No, we can't.
Oh.
Yeah, we can talk about that. We can talk about that. No,
you're killing people, Joe. Stop. There are people dying.
Don't be cooping. No cooping on the show.
Oh, the funny thing is, I just shut down all talk of anything Jew related on my Discord voice chat, and then everyone decided that I was the anti-Semitic one because I said no Jews, and they took it out of context.
That's right.
Oh, God.
That's right.
Well, if I can bring up something entirely unrelated, because it'll make you feel better, maybe. Right now, this exact minute, there is an outrage of moment going on because Garth Brooks at Detroit's Ford Stadium did a concert wearing a jersey for Barry Sanders, the number 20 of his home football team, and people have misconstrued that as him coming out in favor of Bernie.
Yeah.
Without any research.
But they,
it's like,
that's exactly how people do.
Don't they know that he's got to be a Trump supporter? Like, there's just no way. Like, I just assume that every country music singer is a Trump supporter.
I mean, he's also wealthy, so you never know.
Even if you're not, people will assume you are, because we all know that Willie is as left as they get, and still, I mean, come on, everybody loves Willie.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that he's a country singer, though. I don't know.
You'll get a 3-day
country music.
You'll get a 3-day contact high just from being in proximity to that guy.
He's the only person who knows how someone died from marijuana. He saw a bale fall on him one time.
All right. Okay. I see how this is going to be.
Hey, you said you were going to derail the show, so I'm just trying to make you feel at home.
Yeah, no. I didn't realize this show had no tracks whatsoever. I'm just going to sit here and relax now.
So the heresy train has no brakes.
No. I mean, I'll ask you some questions when things hit a lull or there's too much dead air, but I mean, I'm just going to let it go.
Sure.
I learned a long time ago not to try and steal this motherfucker. Well, actually, Poe broke the door down for some reason, I'm sure. He had something he's upset about.
Oh, no, I was just going to... I'm not so upset so much as just preparing for like the first episode of my stream tomorrow, where I'm just going to be talking... I'm going to be interviewing what Twitter would refer to as a map or a minor attracted person.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
No.
Oh,
go away.
Why?
Because I'm going to be like a recurring topic in my streams are just going to be talking about like what's it called, like the pedophile cases, especially in schools. But like I honestly just want to have a debate. This person has a podcast of their own, just for maps and zoophiles. So I'm going to debate them.
All right.
Yeah.
Who's going to moderate it?
Post the link in the Discord
Thanks
so we
for
can
that.
listen.
This is why I want to make comics. I want to murder people by proxy so that I may feel better about myself and share it with the world.
Isn't that what we all really want out of comic books? So like,
look, Rick and Morty was
feature too, but you know,
Rick and Morty was not wrong. If you're a creative type, you may in fact have a murderous rage bubbling inside you that is only soothed by the idea that you are murdering your enemies by proxy in fiction.
I mean, I'm not sure that's entirely true. At least not for me.
It's not. I'm being entirely bombastic.
Okay.
But
although I do think like in that that does kind of ring true, especially for any of the last two of the Ultimates books. Those were entirely just releasing demons.
Look, I'm just saying, you have a bad day, you come home, you get in, you put in the most recent Doom game, you shoot demons, you are not thinking about the demons, you are in fact thinking about how much you'd like to do this to some guy's face. And you feel better when you're done, and you never actually do anything to anyone awful.
No,
that's also true.
I can definitely see that. You guys are comic fans. When did you two get into comic books? Like, when did that actually happen? And how did that?
Like as professionals or as kids?
No. As well, I mean, sometimes they're not. I mean, sometimes they're one and the same. Sometimes people don't get into comics until they're older. But yeah, just whenever. Like, go ahead. What books did you like when you were a kid? Like, what was your inspiration? That kind of stuff.
Well, we didn't have comics over here because it was Ireland in the 90s, and we didn't have much of anything.
You
Didn't
didn't have
you get
20,000
telephone
AD?
service about that time?
Oh, we did actually have 20,000 AD because they were a British comic.
See?
We did have some comics, but not what you guys typically think of as comics with like Marvel and DC.
Well, no,
We would have had things like.
Here's the thing. I'm a little bit of a comic historian. Like, I'm well aware of shit like 20,000 AD and the Marvel Comics British line where they released the cardboard trades in the late 80s as opposed, like, not even trades, but premium edition, basically, of like 2 or 3 issues, square bound on cardstock. And you couldn't get them in the U.S. I have a small collection of those. So, I mean, I know that you guys had, like, a different kind of fare, but that's what makes the question so interesting to me. Like, where did you pick up on those, or was it later on when you got access to, like, eBay and stuff?
Well, no. Well, in the 90s, they came out with, strangely enough, a line that they called X-Men Ultimate.
Yeah.
Which has nothing to do with the Ultimate setting. But what it was a card-backed, as you put it, 3 to 4 comics squished into one book. And it was mostly lines from the earlier in the 90s or late 80s and stuff like that. And eventually they expanded it out to have like Ultimate Wolverine, Ultimate... there was a whole bunch of them. But they were like £3 for one of these books. They came out monthly. They were pretty good to get, you know? And I read most of those when I was a kid because they didn't really stock anything else that was like that where I was.
Okay.
I grew up in a very rural part of Ireland, so that was most of my comic stuff. Really, I was more into... funnily enough, over here, we had only 2 TV channels, but our second TV channel, whoever was doing the buying of programs, picked some really good animated shows. So we had Batman the Animated Series, we had Gargoyles, we had...
oh, now you're speaking my language.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, well, we basically had a lot of really good animated shows. So that was more my interest. Like, we had X-Men on the weekend, stuff like that, you know?
That was the only show that Carol Danvers was ever good in. She was in a coma, so Rogue could have her powers.
Exactly.
Except when she was an evil ghost.
Well, even then, that was...
but yeah,
that was still good. I mean...
oh, yeah.
I didn't know Brie Larson was acting back then.
No. Brie Larson puts other people into coma. Get it right.
Right.
On the other end of the spectrum, I was always into comics as a kid because my first comics were, in fact, my old man's comics. He had a small collection with, like, the original Secret Wars, ROM Space Knight #1, a bunch of odds and ends.
Ayrton.
Church is going to have a nerdgasm.
It's terrible because my dad sold them for Star Trek The Next Generation trading card game cards.
Yeah, nothing.
On the premise that he would get a one-of-a-kind rare. Yeah, and it's like, you idiot. This was my inheritance. What have you done? That being said, my parents are going to watch this, so my dad has just heard me refer to him as an idiot in public. Sorry, Dad.
Good job, Joe.
But seriously,
hey, Ma, look, I'm on TV.
Seriously though,
Joe's dad. That was actually me throwing my voice into your son's avatar. I totally called you an idiot.
There we go.
About him.
Yeah.
So don't get mad at me.
Yeah, no.
It's the whiskey. Blame the whiskey.
No, I can actually say what comic was the comic that made me decide I wanted to do this thing. Okay. It was Spider-Man because I was a Marvel kid way back in the day. I was a Marvel mutt. And it was a weird Spider-Man issue during his first interactions with the Jackal when the Jackal was trying to drive him insane.
Yeah. That was right around
the Beyonder and...
Okay, keep going.
The Beyonder and Mephisto were having the big debate. The Beyonder's I'm going to give you this one chance to prove good and evil, or I'm going to undo the universe.
That was going to be what? That was 92, 93 Spider-Man, which was a tie-in to a Secret Wars 2.
I could not tell you. Because
the Beyonder, he had the Jerry curls,
barely
right?
10 years old.
He had the Jerry curls, right? Well, how old were you when you were 10? Like, what year was it?
The white... I was born in 82. So
82. So yeah, when you were 10,
so
that would have
if
been
it was
around 92.
yeah, but no, yeah, he's in the dude in a big white suit.
Yeah.
But of course, because clever inversion, Mephisto backs Spidey, and the Beyonder chooses the clones of Peter Parker's Uncle Ben
Oh.
and other important family members. And this one, frankly, insignificant battle in the Spider scheme is actually like the serious stakes. And it was just, of course, really well drawn. It was really gorgeous. But also the story in it was very like, oh man, what if this goes wrong? And of course, I didn't have the comic before, I didn't have the comic after, so I had no idea what was going on at the time. I do now, been able to read back, but then no, I only had to go off of what I had. And I was like, I want to do this, which was a huge change for my folks, because for the longest time I had wanted to be a paleontologist.
Didn't we all?
Well, specifically, I told my mom I was going to be a dinosaur psychologist. She's like, where are you going to get patients? I said, I'll dig them up. And she was like, oh.
So you were resourceful.
Yeah. But no, I was like, I want to do comics. And
I've never met
for-
someone who wanted to be a paleontologist and was a smartass. I like it.
The thing was is that as we got into the late 90s, early 2000s era, particularly around the Onslaught era of X-Men, I started to kind of like move away from Marvel. But I also was very much against the rank and file DC. I would read a DC like collected, like a big graphic novel, Dark Knight and Arkham Asylum, but I never went in for Catwoman. It's like no. So I started reading like Predator comics because I loved the movie, and all kinds. And that started me going down the path of indie, heavy metal, Gore Shriek, Dead of Night by London Knight, all the greatest hits of how gory and how lurid can we get. Okay.
I did notice that there was some. In fact, let me pull up this the thing that I was sent. I'm being lax here. I apologize. Keep going. I'm just leaning back and drinking whiskey. I'm not even.
I was going to say that
hosting the show.
Woo. The thing is that around. I want to say when I was 19 or so, I'm in community college, and I realized, no, I had to be 20, and I was in community college, and I realized I'm not going to make it. For all of my effort, all of my desire to be the penciler or the inker or one of those really awesome arty jobs, I do not have I have the desire, but not necessarily the raw talent that can be forged into professional talent to do this thing. Okay. They tell you that stuff about like, so many thousands of hours and you can become a professional. It's like, there is an upper limit based in raw ability. But I had also begun writing. And so it was like, well, maybe I can write comics, and was like thinking about it, and was of course lured into it between Seithon and I, a story I've told a couple of times to other people. And so yeah, I write the comics now.
All right. Well, Ayrton, real quick, why don't you just tell him why when he started rattling off the comics he was into when he was younger made me go all weak in the legs.
So I have to do your Secret Wars story for you.
Well, you at least have to.
Are you in your comfy spot in the chair again?
I'm not in the comfy spot. I promise. I'm not pretending to like lay down and take a nap right now. I'm just saying I don't want it to come from me and not sound authentic, without any like backstory whatsoever. I want you to tell them so they'll know it's genuine. What was like the first thing I ever told you about my comic book collection?
Okay. So, well, one, I'll get the short one out of the way. One of his most prideful accomplishments is tracking down an entire original run of ROM Space Knight over, 3 states?
Yeah,
you went
three
to find
or
that?
5, something like that.
Okay. And then also all of the original Secret Wars. And the reasoning behind that is...
Oh, you don't have to get into all that. Yeah, no, but yeah.
Oh, I thought you wanted me to do the whole thing.
No, that would just be
Okay.
awkward.
What I have
That's why I was confused.
what I have never understood personally is I have heard people in passing be like, "Oh, I don't like ROM Space Knight. That's just a toy commercial." But these people like Transformers.
They like the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, of course it's a toy commercial. You're not reading it because it's a toy. You're reading it because the context of the story is really interesting. Rom aspiring to, maintain his space chivalry in the face of isolation and, the dire wraiths. Holy crap.
Yeah,
I mean, and
that's
it is
body
kind of
horror.
ridiculous and over the top.
and I don't think
Oh,
I don't think the epic of the Secret Wars gets enough love. But anyway, back to the Executioner. I've got the first script page pulled up here. Let's get back to the original reason why we started this show. Kind of get it back on the road here. I think Seithon has already just gone to sleep. He's like, yeah, fuck these guys. I'm out.
Pretty much, yeah. You guys suck.
But
See, then these are my people.
Joe, I came here to discuss our comic and try to shill it to people, and here you are talking about ROM Space Knight.
ROM Space Knight's a
This is why I can't
show,
take you
buddy.
anywhere.
Well, here's the thing.
Executioner ROM Space Knight crossover win.
Here's my absolute professional host job right here. Speaking of great comic books, let's talk about the Executioner. How about that? Did that work? Did I get the car back on the road? Are we on the road again, out of the woods? But so this is the storyboard. Who is in charge of the storyboarding?
This is being done by Riff, my wonderful dear friend, who I literally dragged out of bed 2 hours ago to do this.
Oh, okay, good. Fantastic.
See, since we were originally planning to do this on Wednesday, I told him, hey, do these 2 pages from the new script so that we can have something to talk about whilst we're there. And he was like, sure, I'll do that. And then it turned out that it wasn't going to be Wednesday, it was going to be Saturday instead. And by the way, I need this now. And he is currently a terrified little bunny working away very hard at his computer to do these 2 pages. So he's doing this one right now, and he'll do the other one later on.
Hey, well,
and if he gets it finished before the end of the show, I will send it over.
we will definitely have you back as well. But that's kind of a thing. We're repeat offenders around here. We'll just drag you in from the Discord. You just won't have a choice. I've already shown you that I can do that.
Sure, that's fine.
Yeah, I'll see you in
Yes.
DC, and I'll be like, get on the show. We're live. Go. But so give me a rundown of the story behind the Executioner. What where did this concept come from? What is this concept? I've seen some really spicy scenes in this preview comic. They're really nice.
You fielded this one a couple of times, Seithon. You want to field this one this time?
Sure. Joe and I should explain before we go any further.
Sure. Starts talking.
We like to have competitive ideas in that we'll both have ideas about something, and we will fight about it until it gets written down, at which point it basically becomes canon. So he and I have slightly different concepts about where everything came from. So if you've listened to any of the other shows we've been on when I've explained something, you might get a different explanation this time from what Joe has to think, because he has a different perspective. And both are valid, but whatever ends up on the page is the page. So, Joe, if you want to take it away and...
But the broad strokes are essentially the same.
Already disagreeing. This is off to a great start.
Seithon and I were we're puttering around, doing whatever, and as is often the case, I was in fine temper about the state of comics. Not because I hate comics. No, they changed it. Now it sucks. No. It's not that. It's you have these political actions going on. Weinstein, Cosby, and so on.
Yeah.
Luminaries of
Epstein, who didn't kill himself.
Yes.
Luminaries of media who are being outed for very skeevy things. And frankly, it's not that I doubt the potential of what is said that was done, but I'm not a fan of how it's being done. There are questions about, do these people have actual justice in mind, or is this something exploitative? Is this a movement and witch hunt in full view? Because we've had them before. But also, as Seithon has mentioned, a lot, especially with Cosby, but others as well. Some of these people were honestly well-respected people in media. They had good reputations, and to see those reputations destroyed is deeply affecting. And the question became, well, what would you do in a world where you have capes, right? Where you have like a Me Too movement, where you have the revelation that Superman is not so super, which has some similarity to The Boys when you think about it. But yeah. I'm not necessarily a fan of that particular author's sort of approach of black comedy. It's good. He does well by it. It's not my deal. It's not the elements that I would want to explore. And so we started kicking back and forth about this idea of, well, who would deal with this? How would you deal with capes that are frankly awful, but have the good press of being the cape? And so we conceived of a figure, an almost urban legend-like figure called the Executioner, the superhero of superheroes, the guy who has no people, has no face, does not answer to an authority, and strikes down those who have transgressed the sort of informal rules of what we, the reader, and indeed what the society at large think of as the rules for superheroes. So, like, when you have a comic, like you're reading a Batman, and you're like, well, why don't they just kill the bad guy? Why does it that all the heroes adhere to the one rule when the one rule makes no sense? And it's because there is a scary, scary assassin out there who will take you out if you break the rule, because it's there for a reason. And then we're like, okay, so how would you do a comic about that person? And it started coming together with all kinds of elements. Of course, classic Zorro, the Phantom, Batman, the Shadow, but also some more unusual old stuff that aren't as popularly remembered anymore, like the Scarecrow of Rami Marsh, and some of the old 1920s, 1930s supervillain-centric pulps that almost nobody reads, like Dr. Death, where you're ostensibly following the adventures of a bad guy, and there are good guys, and he theoretically has to get defeated, but of course you want him to escape so that next week or next month you can read the ongoing adventure, the next plan, the next scheme. And so how we then distanced it from other conflicted characters of the type that you would think of, like the Punisher, is it's not a mission against guys with guns. It's a guy with a gun fighting supers, often outside his weight class, by using professional skill. Every story is on some level like a heist movie, where you have to plan and execute, literally, this sanction on a super. So it's the one guy with the one gun in the one place with the kryptonite bullet aimed for Clark Kent because he's put it together, and you just take him out. And then after he's dead, hit the media with, this is what he did. This is what they're not telling you.
Okay. Now, how did you get the rights to use Clark Kent?
Oh, we didn't. I'm making the comparison. If we actually had Clark Kent, I'd be like, oh yeah, no, we're working with DC now.
Ayrton being an asshole.
No.
Don't worry, Ayrton's just being a bitch.
No, it's all right.
That's my job.
We might be getting a certain green-skinned refugee at some point, however. We will not be saying anything more about that, however.
Okay. Right.
If you follow my Twitter, you might know what's going on. I will be doing a spoof comic page with one of my accomplices in the very near future, and that will be posted on our Twitter too.
That's going to go well. Watch our career burn before it starts.
Yeah, there you go.
It's allowed by parody.
Oh god.
We won't be using any trademarked names. It'll just be a subtle green nod.
But as we were kicking around this idea, we were also thumbing through comics and watching films and the like. And there was a bunch of stuff ongoing about Wakanda. And you've got they're always trying to push the Trinity dialogue with Diana. And Themyscira is this magical fantasy land of ultra Amazons that's just head tilty. And we started saying, okay, well, what if in our setting, you have this kind of nation state, but you paint it with a fair brush of realpolitik, right? So you have the super future, super island of super people, but it's a modern micronation, and I'm going to assume non-nuclear. Like, we actually didn't address the question of does it have nukes, because it instead has super tech.
Don't they
need new?
Don't they have a Superman?
People who are new.
I was gonna say, don't they have like a Superman and like
setting does
and an Atom counterpart, like an archetype of like a Superman and a nuclear man and that kind of thing?
We have analog, but we actually specifically at the start said we're not having Superman in our setting because Superman is a horribly broken superhero. Technically, he could do everything and anything, and it just is impossible to write for him effectively. So we don't want to break our setting.
I'm a little more forgiving. I say that Superman and Batman both are sort of victims of having 90 plus years of canonicity and a lot of expectation and storytelling that has to go along with them that they are not responsible for. If you do a story in which Superman is depowered and then try to make that the new status quo, either someone will unmake your new status quo to return you to the original status quo, or readers will be discontented because they want their status quo. They want their last son of Krypton to be capable to do all these things. And what's worse is that if that story idea is done badly, it's even worse. I remember, because I've seen the page. I've seen it. I remember this page where I want to say Jeff Johns, gonna name names, ruin my career, woo! Did a Superman comic where Superman decided, I'm not going to be Clark Kent anymore. Clark Kent is a disguise I use. I'm going to walk the Earth as Kal-El in the super suit, and I'm going to walk like all these other mortals. I'm going to be on the ground.
Oh my god, I remember that. I loved that book.
And he was walking through this neighborhood, and people got real mad at Superman for not being Superman. And they were trying to do, I think, an homage or an allusion to an old Green Lantern, Green Arrow comic, where they literally have a little kid look at Superman and say, "You are the weapon of mass destruction." And just, even if you like the book, and I apologize for talking crap about a book that you like, that's Not my intention.
I mean, no, I was younger when I read it, but it just felt like really, it felt really inspiring for some reason.
The thing is, in my brain, I'm like, that Aesop doesn't work because weapons of mass destruction in our world are unthinking. They answer to human beings who push buttons. Superman, and indeed other superheroes like him, are sentient beings with the ability to make deliberate decisions. The only reason to use the WMD argument is because you're desperately trying to invoke modern politics to say, this is like this, and therefore I'm topical, when you could do that story better.
Now, this is something I think I've covered on the show a lot, actually. Deconstructionism is what you're talking about, right? Like when you try and deconstruct the character down to making it, like figuring out what makes it tick and then turn him into a walking bomb or whatever that is under the government's control, like, say, in Dark Knight Returns. Like, when you make Superman a government asset, you basically turn him into a walking nuclear weapon, right? And that was the father of all deconstructionism. And that, honestly, I went through a phase where that was some of my favorite stuff to read. But then I kind of realized that it became a crutch for a lot of good writers. And they did a lot of self-insert in the deconstructionism. And deconstructionism, I found for a lot of writers and even, some artists, it's almost like a way to self-insert or project your own, like, inner issues onto the page of a comic book. Kind of like what we were talking about before, like with, seeing yourself inflict pain on something, or seeing your character inflict pain on someone that you deep down have designated as the enemy in your head, so that you don't go after people who slight you in real life, kind of thing. Mark Wade's Irredeemable comes to mind as a really good example of
that. The thing is that I agree with you. Deconstruction can work, and deconstruction can be abused because it's a tool just like any other.
Right.
But on the opposite end of that spectrum, in the same way, you have the attempts at retro Golden Age that come off as just so bad. Ridiculous.
Legion writers, Legion of Superheroes writers have been just horrible about that in the past. Just trying
they're trying to grasp.
Go ahead.
They're trying to grasp a sense of innocence and nostalgia for not only for a group that isn't there, because most of us didn't read Golden Age, we read Silver, but also treating it like, and you're 12 and you don't know any better. No, a lot of us are much more nuanced. That's like, I'm apparently a Luddite. I actually like what they refer to as Iron Age or Dark Age comics. I like the gritty and grim, getting the edge in my teeth. I just also believe it has to get filed down a little bit. You don't have to throw out the baby in the bathwater. You really don't.
Sometimes it can be useful.
Yeah.
Depends on how dirty the baby is.
Well, I mean, I've kept all of mine, but I'm not here to judge. But
I advocate being nice to babies where possible.
Yeah, that is absolutely what we support here on the Gospel of Comics. I'm looking at you here, Poe.
Oh, wait.
But ultimately, I'm just saying that an overabundance of nostalgia or a unilateral, universal up message is equally as negative as a absolute deconstruction. Everything you loved is awful, and maybe you should feel awful for liking it. They're both too extreme. There has to be a middle ground somewhere.
Well, that's kind of like you said that a lot of us read Silver Age and not really Golden Age. And when you go back to Golden Age comics, because other than like the time shift and the I like to call it the extreme age. I think a lot of people refer to it as the Bronze Age of comics or the heroic age of comics.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I like to call it the extreme age. Right there around 92, when you started getting Rob Liefeld's pouches on everything. You started getting stuff like Spawn and the Max, and you started getting Supreme, which was kind of like a badass version of Superman. All of this new stuff coming out of Image. Marvel, Wolverine was still smoking cigars and drinking beer, cutting people in half. Even DC,
Oh yeah,
like Batman
that's some good Wolverine.
Even DC, Batman would beat the crap out of bad guys a lot harder in the 90s than he did later on. I mean, you had the Azrael saga where Bane broke Batman's back. That was brutal. But I feel like... Go ahead. Well,
I was going to say, well, here's an example, because you brought up Spawn. When I was a kid, I read Spawn for a week. I have like a dozen Spawn comics.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it, but looking back at it later, I was like, this isn't very good. And it wasn't that it was bad. It's not like Spawn sucks now, I'm too old for this. It was, I had been reading Dark Horse, which is made for a mature audience. And it's like they got sex and violence and swearing, but they approach it something resembling like you see in film. It's almost very mature. When you look at Spawn and its drop of the occasional swear, it's like a little kid swears. Where I have the ability to swear now because I'm not under my daddy at Marvel, so I'm going to use poop and fart. And it's like, that's not good storytelling, Todd. Sorry.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How did you think about how Invincible treated that sort of swearing or the more adult situation?
I read I want to say most of the run of Invincible, and just lost energy in it. Not for the swears, but for the gratuitous. Everyone explodes into gore.
Yeah, that did turn off a lot of people.
As somebody who likes gore and violence, I'm a huge horror movie fan. It reaches a point where it's like, are people just bags of red?
See, I like the bags of red treatment because most of the time when people did explode, they were getting hit by one of the tougher people in the universe. So I can understand the exploding, why that happened.
I'm not discounting it. I'm just saying that after a while, it loses all impact, and it's like
it did. It really did.
More people exploding. On the other hand, I would absolutely advocate for anyone who likes that level of hyperviolence and wants to discuss the ramifications of it. Luther Strode.
Oh, I read that. I've read all of that. I read all of that in one day. Actually, I bought all of them.
Yeah, it's absolutely great, and it's
I read it for the story. Because I got tired of the breaking people. I think the first or second issue, honestly. But I kept reading it because the story just kept pulling me in. But I think I've honestly gotten tired of that type of bags of red type exploding. Because I saw a piece of Ryan Otley's art where Superman did a classic Invincible move and drove his fist through Darkseid, classic Darkseid. Yeah. And I was just thinking, this doesn't feel right.
On the other hand, because I was actually about to mention this, here's us being violent, and I like to think that we emphasize being real world violent, in the sense of people getting punched hurts, and it looks like it hurts, and maybe you don't want that.
Now, this is the execution. This is the executioner, and who is
yes?
Who are they punching?
That's the fun. We knew that this week you guys were going to be really into this. Apparently, that is a member of the Furares.
Profiling is wrong.
It's not profiling if it's true.
Look, they were carding everybody that was driving down that sidewalk.
Right, they were dead when you got there.
Wait, Poe, do you like watermelon?
I'm not a fan. It feels like too much work.
Look, Poe doesn't like bacon, so all of his opinions are invalid.
Hey.
First of all,
No.
bacon is just salty ham. It's just salty, sweaty, greasy ham.
Look, have you tried honeydew?
Honeydew? No, I don't think I have.
Great.
Have you tried just a huge hunk of soy?
Oh, for the love of God!
But that is the one that the Executioner's beating up is one of the Furare, and they're an elite.
I totally read that as furries for a second, by the way.
Yes, no, but they're an elite team from our super island nation. They are in fact Spartans.
Nice.
So, the Executioner is beating the living crap out of a Spartan.
Nice. So the Church of Sparta actually applies here. Good. I wasn't just being lazy. I knew this
Indeed.
the whole time.
No. Yeah. The supposition of our setting is that the war widows of Leonidas in the 300 departed the city of Sparta and went on a religious pilgrimage, and as they traveled, they discovered basically a crashed UFO.
Okay.
And then harnessing its technologies, established an even greater city-state, because it is the ancient phrase that only a Spartan woman can make a Spartan man.
All right.
Okay.
So they have created a society based basically around being.
What was that? Sorry, it was a.
I just dropped my phone. Sorry about that.
It was too awesome. But they basically made a society around super soldiers who are about one step ahead of human ability, but enough that it's profound. You know, they're not.
Right.
They're
Think
not.
of it like it's an entire island of Captain Americas, except they don't have any sense of American values. They're instead Spartan values, and that's actually kind of creepy.
Unlike Themyscira, which has a magical occlusion, or Wakanda, which has the big hollow field protecting it. The island nation of Polis can be found on satellite. You can see it. You can sail to it if they don't shoot you out of the sky or sink you. And their claim to fame is this technology, which puts them even keel with any nation on Earth that might want what they've got. And so they've more or less been contracted to keep the peace. So it's a PMC of superpowered Captain Americas, but they've retained their Spartan social values, which means that they're very Greek, while not actually being Greeks. They have a Helid subclass. They engage in all the things that make people uncomfortable about ancient Greece that they try to downplay while talking about Greek philosophy.
Like being super gay.
And touching little boys.
I mean, sure.
Well, there aren't any little boys, so that's part of the problem.
It's one of the things that they enjoy about the rest of the world is that we have men.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Lots of.
And they have very flexible views on things such as consent.
What else is flexible about it? That's what I want to hear.
Everything.
All right.
The suit is non-specific, but in fact, in the suit, as you saw on the front cover, is a woman. So this is a woman beating the ever-loving crap out of another woman, and it has nothing to do with gender. It has nothing to do with power dynamics. That's to do with this is a trained expert in kicking people's ass, fighting outside their weight class, who needs to take down these supers very, very quickly. And that means being brutal and not playing fair.
Seems legit. So, did you?
Yep.
I don't know.
Because if any,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if any of these Spartan warriors peg the Executioner is going to get wrecked.
So,
yeah.
Please tell me you have an arc based around that.
We actually do have stuff involving the Executioner and Spartan and the interactions between them. So don't worry, there is stuff involving that.
Okay.
All sorts of interesting stuff.
Lots of flexibility. Now,
You know what? We will include some Spartan yoga just for you as a stretch goal.
there we
So
go.
there you go.
There we go. When the
Okay,
campaign
so
goes
And
live.
you should also make your goal flexible.
What you're saying, what you're saying, Seithon, is like stretch goal. We will do a 12-page Spartan swimsuit issue, with Spartan combat maneuvers and techniques that just happen to include being in an armored bikini with spears and shields.
You know,
Sue for that being too close to my real life.
speaking of the Greeks, one Mr. Caesar has suggested that swimsuit issues definitely need to come back. That was a '90s things in comic. People liked them. You know, they should do it again. Women should be make women in comics sexy again. What's the anagram for that?
Well, I think it's more that you shouldn't. Characters should behave in ways that is befitting their character. I mean, I don't think anyone particularly imagines Amanda Wallace doing a swimsuit issue.
I mean, New 52 kind of basically did.
Okay, I don't know about the New 52, but I'm thinking about Batman, like Justice
Classic
League
Waller.
animated. Yeah. Oh dear.
On the other end of that, on the other side of that, though, because I had the Marvel swimsuit issue.
Right.
I was a young man. Things happen. I, however, was not a fan, and continue to not be a fan of like Vampirella and Lady Death, because I always felt that there is an upper limit where
Sexy stops being sexy.
Cheesecake.
Yeah, it becomes exploitative. Buy it, asshole.
All that shit.
No, no, here's the
Is
thing.
that Zenescope the Tarot one, or am I remembering something wrong?
Oh no, Tarot was worse than most of what Zenescope puts out. Zenescope,
Oh, okay.
I think
I
Tarot
don't have
was
any
an
problem with
indie
anybody liking anything.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with anyone liking anything. If you like it, that's your thing. Go with it. I'm
Except
just saying
Captain
that I don't like. But I'm not gonna stop them from doing it. They have a right to have bad taste. I have a right to disagree.
Yeah.
To be honest, I feel like God would judge me more than my conscience if I like Captain Marvel.
The publisher for Tarot,
Well, because
the publisher for Tarot was Broadsword Comics. That's sorry.
well, see, because here's the weirdness of it to me is a lot of people are talking about the Avengers now because of film, and the Avengers are treated like they're frontier. But if we go back to the era of my youth, the era of just before the Iron Age or the Extreme Age or the what have you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the Avengers were made up of second tier heroes that nobody read.
Right.
Except for maybe Captain America, who was much more interesting in his own comic than he was in Avengers.
Yep.
That's true.
And this is as someone who had read and enjoyed the Ben Grimm wandering battle world after the Secret Wars being human,
Yep.
right?
Well,
Where
I've
there was an entire secondary arc where people who were in the Fantastic Four that were also Avengers were having things happen while Grimm was away.
Well, here's the thing. I've often said on this show, like people kind of get their to appease my Irish friend here, their knickers in a twist when you bring up diversity in comic books, and shout out you boy Zach, all that good stuff. But when you bring up diversity in comic books, there's always like a dissenting opinion on both sides because there's one side that says, "Oh, we need more diversity," and there's another side that says, "We don't need more diversity." There's another side entirely that grew up in the same time frame you and I did, where the comics we were reading. When I read Secret Wars, my first Avengers team was led by a woman, had a Captain Marvel on it who was an African American female. The Wasp was the leader of the Avengers in Secret Wars, and Iron Man was an African American man named Rhodey. So, diversity's been there for a while now, and people accepted it and didn't question it, and there weren't riots, and nobody stopped buying the books because they were good stories written by people who knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I brought it up was because at that time, as we joked about earlier, Carol was in a coma.
Yeah.
And when Carol wasn't in a coma, she was Warbird.
Or Miss
when she
Marvel.
wasn't being called Warbird, she was calling Miss Marvel. And her lack of popularity had nothing to do with her uniform, because frankly, we know why people were checking out that uniform.
Oh yeah.
Other people were wearing it too. Psylocke's still wearing it.
Yeah.
True.
Just not as well.
Frankly, people didn't care. People didn't care about Miss Marvel because people don't care about Miss Marvel. We just don't. It's not a very good character. It has potential. It could be an interesting character, but
so did Dazzler.
The Kree scrawl.
I love how you keep saying it.
Well, Miss Marvel
because
is an archetype, not an actual person.
Yeah.
But because there's multiple Miss Marvels. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. But then the next step, of course, is it's not about diversity. As you say, we don't need diversity, or people say we don't need diversity. We need better stories. You want us to, appreciate the diversity. Why not show characters being awesome and doing awesome things?
Well, one of the things that
I think
that's hard.
Part of the problem, as I've discussed with Joe in the past, is that many of the characters, these are businesses. They want to push their characters, their IP. So instead of making new, interesting characters that happen to be diverse, they instead yoink one character out and shove another character in, and are like, yeah, we totally meant to do this for the story and stuff. Which is why we end up with, like, Riri Williams and other really dumb ideas in comics, when really they would have been better off being their own character doing something else somewhere else.
Well, one thing that I've noticed...
But, the businesses are...
No, go ahead.
Go on.
Oh, no.
I was going to say...
Rock, paper, scissors for it? Go.
I shall go
it.
first. No, I think if we look at the Japanese market for manga, which is still really robust and doing really well globally, they have a huge churn in characters. Characters come, characters go, and it's fine. Some characters stay forever, but that's DBZ for you, whatever. Whereas if we look in the West, it's Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. It's the same characters forever. They do not change.
Well,
and that is, I think, because publishers are very afraid of doing new things.
Right.
And potentially damaging their cash cow, their cash flow, because they're far too interested in appeasing their shareholders than in making new and interesting comic. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. That's why part of the reason why Western comics are dying.
Okay. But no, I think that's one of the main problems that we're having with the industry right now, like you say. And it's not necessarily that they're just swapping out characters. It's that they're taking a symbol off of one, and they've been doing this for decades with Green Lantern, right? Where you take the symbol off of one person and put it on another one. And the older I get, and the more that I look at comic books as a business and as a medium over time, oh, hold on. Allison Pell in the chat says the issue isn't diversity; it's the stories where minority category is all they are and the core of the story. Write good stories with characters that just happen to be diverse. Yeah. But what they do instead is, like you mentioned, Riri Williams. I personally don't have that. Man's a cool character, and we've accepted many different Spider-Men over the years. Like, we accepted Ben Reilly as Scarlet Spider. We accepted, God, what was his name? I want to say Aaron Hernandez, but I know that's not right. The Spider-Man 2099.
Miguel O'Hara.
Yeah.
Miguel. I liked Miguel. When it comes to Spidey specifically, we have two very specific opposite end problems. The first is that Miles Morales was fine in his own universe. I am not so much a fan of how he got rolled into Marveldom because, of course, the entire Ultimates line gets shoved into 616 where it doesn't quite fit for reasons because
not
the
the
Ultimates line was
not-
failing.
Not the entire Ultimates line, just Miles Morales, really, and the Maker.
Yeah. Well,
You got the two best
but
parts
then
of the
on the opposite
line,
end,
to be fair.
on the opposite end is yet again gonna ruin my chances for ever working for the company I love as a kid. Just gonna burn it right now.
I'll make sure to clip
to
this
hell
and send it to him on Twitter.
Yeah.
Coming on this show burned down your chances.
So to hell with One More Day.
Yes.
I find it absolutely abysmal
Yes.
that
We should have made a
someone
Parker
died,
by
which is
now.
very because someone died, which is very unfortunate. I find it absolutely abominable that we unilaterally decided that no one smokes in the Marvel universe now because
Not
rather
even
than
Wolverine,
have a story
who
about
won't give cancer.
but no. Here's the thing: rather than have people smoke like reality and actually address the negatives of it, and have people be like, "I got cancer from my lifelong smoking problem. I'm on the patch, and it's not going to save me." You know, rather than address any of those stories that could be really good, no, just it's Monday now. Nobody smokes because I feel bad. That is bullshit. That is lazy writing. That is hubris writ massive. And quite frankly, Spider-Man was or Peter Parker rather was the stand-in for many of us, not comic nerds, but people of median and lower income origin, common man. Everybody could be Peter Parker on some level. All of us want to get the job that's really cool. All of us want to get the girlfriend that is a supermodel and loves us. We want to marry
the
that
redheaded
woman.
girl next
We
door.
want to
And
get
a
out of the
redhead.
neighborhood. Yeah, we want,
who happens
we all
to be a
want
model and
to-
actress.
Right, but Spidey had to deal with May dying the first time, right?
Yeah.
Because she was on death's door for decades.
Yeah.
He had, he was going to be a father. He had moved to Portland. He had attained a new job and was going up in the world in ways that we, the reader, want to go. Right?
Yeah.
And, very important, stupid, in my opinion, but pertinent, Spider-Man had talked to God. There was a comic. He met God personally.
Well, he met the one above all.
The actual I created.
He met the one above all.
And they said, and they said the words, "You are blessed. You are special. You are the most special being in my creation."
In every universe, in every entity, Spider-Man, like Peter Parker Spider-Man, it's always the best of whoever. Like Spider-Man is the best of all of them.
Because one person was like, "Well, I don't like the spider wedding." We had a hand wave. We removed a wedding and undid 20 years of character development.
Okay.
And what's Spider-Man doing? What is the aspiration that we're all supposed to have? What is the actual axiom of great power and great responsibility? I have great power, so I'm going to go have sex with a black cat. I have great power, so I'm going to screw over everyone else and abandon responsibility so that I can have my aunt back, but everyone hates me now. So that I, Peter Parker, can now crash on a couch in another superhero's house and be a loser who can't keep a job, who has no respect of his peers, who has none of the things that make us like Peter Parker. Meanwhile, if you want to actually go read Spider-Man, well, here's Miles Morales. The corporate says he's real good. And the character is real good. But it's like right now, at this exact moment, they're like, Peter Parker and Mary Jane are starting to have a relationship again. Yeah, that's called backpedaling.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody's buying. Because nobody's been buying it for the better part of a decade. We don't want it. We never did.
You feel better?
I mean, the whole thing with One More Day.
I do feel a little better.
On a personal note, this is why I generally don't let Joe do all the talking. He tends to explode at people, but
I'm fine with
people
it.
like this kind of explosion. So,
No,
I
I don't mind it. This is what I do.
I was
Like,
enjoying it.
This is my
There you
entire
go.
show. Ask Ayrton. This is exactly what I do when I don't have guests on. You should hear some of my
Yeah,
Rob
and
Liefeld diatribes.
And I provoke it.
I just want to say that I actually liked Rob Liefeld's art back in the 90s.
I do too. I
yeah.
just think Rob Liefeld's kind of a cuck now, but that's just me.
Well,
I don't care about his political views.
No, I'm not talking
Computer
about his
graphics-
political views. I think the fact that he blocked me on Twitter for asking him to draw me some feet is kind of a bitch move.
That is a little bit mean, though, at this point.
Computer graphics have opened a great window for creativity in the industry. They've given us the opportunity to do really amazing things.
Like your
They've
race
also
Rob
made a lot of
Liefeld's
people-
patches.
They have also made people really lazy, and when you're already cutting corners because you're familiar with the artistic corners to cut, it can get even more obvious.
Oh yeah.
Greg Land covers, enough said.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just tracing porn covers in general. How big are his balls? Like literally, he has to carry the fucking things in a wheelbarrow to submit art that's literally
it was obvious
trace
to me
pornography.
from, like,
Hey, to be
the
fair,
tracing was obvious to me from like when I was, because the first thing of his art I first saw was, I think, Supreme Power.
Yeah.
Oh no, the Supreme Ultimate crossover, and I was like, what is with their
Are
faces?
you talking about Squadron Supreme?
Yeah, the new universe, the Supreme universe, that the new updated universe. Well, not new, but like the
Are
one
you
that was
talking
kind of
about
like
the
a
Image Supreme universe or the Squadron Supreme Marvel universe, where it's like Marvel's
Squadron Supreme Marvel universe.
Okay.
So when I saw that art, like the first issue where they were facing off again, where the Fantastic Four was fighting the Serpent Society, and I was like, why do I was like what 13, and I was like, why does this look weird and kind of sexy but not?
Why does this look unnaturally like uncomfortable?
Yes.
See, in a piece that I drew, I actually did use an adult model as my model, but the thing is that I didn't trace it. I sat up the book on my desk. I took my little tablet or my little notebook of paper, and I like stared at it and was like, did the hard way, and it was okay.
The hard way.
Indeed, no. Because how else are you going to get
What the fuck even is this show anymore?
body study on the very best in physical womanhood if you don't look at the best? And quite frankly, it was easier to get adult magazines than it was to find like actual body studies of models.
Yeah, just, remember, Joe, all the pictures of the Virgin Mary are based off of prostitutes if they're from, like, the Renaissance.
That is
Is
correct.
that a problem?
Interesting.
No, I'm just saying that this is the way it's been for fucking ever.
Well, I mean, I have a book called Unruly Women
Sketching
of France
hoes.
about the 19th century and
hold
the
on.
artistic movements of.
I just had an epiphany.
Oh, God.
Was God the first thought patroller with the Virgin Mary?
Oh, God.
And with that, I have to sign out for tonight. With that,
Goodbye.
I will have to sign out for tonight. Thank you for having me, though.
You're welcome, buddy. Have a
See-
good one.
I'm confused now because if she breathes, she's a thought, but God breathed life into it. Does that mean that God is also a thought?
No.
Oh, God, there goes the other heart of our audience.
He's the ultimate thought
This
patroller.
is getting very complicated.
Yeah, he's the ultimate thought patroller. He's the original OG thought
Me-
patroller.
Guys,
Metaphysical
Guys.
pimp.
Joe, people,
Yes.
can we possibly get back onto one topic before I completely lose my mind?
Wait,
I don't know. I kind of want to hear you lose your mind now at this point.
starting.
It's 4:20 a.m. For the love of God.
Then
Well, talk to me about the bikes.
Seithon,
For an hour and 20 minutes, you have goobed, Joseph.
Seithon,
You have goobed.
Seithon, it's 420. You know what you must do. You want to know about the jet bikes.
Yes, they're jet bikes. They're fucking awesome. We stole them from Warhammer.
Excellent.
We didn't steal them.
Hey,
We didn't steal them from Warhammer.
Straight up, if you stole them from Warhammer, I'll see if I can get Nick Ricada to promote this book.
Well, let's be clear. Let's be clear. We may have stolen the idea of jet bikes from any number of sources, but at least we actually drew and produced our own jet bikes. We didn't just put Tau vehicles in the background of a Venom comic and call it ours.
Oh, Jesus, did he actually do that?
Shots fired.
Yeah, didn't he? Oh, I remember that one now. Oh, God, yeah. Ooh.
and thought no one would notice. I'm amazed Games Workshop didn't notice.
Also,
which is funny because Games Workshop shoes the stuffing out of everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Seithon,
They're like super litigious about all this stuff.
But
I apologize on letting everything get completely off track. Now, get back to telling me about your book.
No! Look, you know what? As long as everyone is having fun, it's okay, but my goodness.
It's the alcohol.
Yeah.
So the thing of it was, as I discussed with somebody else a while ago, because they are Grecian and they are still training with the old weapons in the old way, though they have a super tech angle to it.
Right.
They have a hoplite. They have a cavalry. They learned horsemanship, despite it not being a traditional part of the Spartan military.
Now,
why wouldn't you have jet bikes?
Well, one thing I was going to ask when I saw this, I don't know that I recall ever seeing this in the book, but with their technology, do their spears like shoot lasers, kind of like Stargate SG-1 style?
No, they don't shoot lasers, but if they throw them, it's probably going to go through you and at least 3 or 4 other people behind you.
That's pretty fantastic.
The emphasis is not so much on like energy weapons and inexplicable shielding, as it is the quality of metals. So super dense materials and unnaturally sharp alloys. So it's a spear, like a real spear. But it's ridiculously light and it's ridiculously sharp.
It's the equivalent of like souped up vibranium, basically.
Well, the way I approached it, and I think Joe as well, is we looked at the techno-barbaric themes from 40k, where you got people running around with chains alongside like really high-end tech.
Yeah.
And basically, what happened is you have these people who are reasonably well educated for their time, but still fairly primitive overall on the science scale, who get on board this floating ship with fantastic technology everywhere. They don't quite understand it. They subscribe it to magic, and then they remake things into patterns and forms that they understand. So they may not understand why a certain thing works a certain way, but they know that if they use it like this, it works really well. So
this piece of plating is the most powerful piece of armor they've ever seen, so we'll use it as a shield, when in fact it's just a piece of shipboard hull that is designed to resist, gravitational and radioactive forces. It's super, but it's not super how they use it.
Yeah. So they're basically taking stuff that's beyond their understanding and using it in ways that they do understand. So that's probably the best way to describe their approach to technology and stuff.
Interesting. Now that does
the
add...
centuries.
Go ahead.
I was saying it's the centuries of isolation and the practical plenty of having everything you could possibly need that has sort of curtailed their cultural development. Because when you look at the way societies work in the real world, societies that are on major trade hubs or have interaction with other cultures for ill or for for positive, those are the ones that change and evolve and excel. The ones that have very little interaction or are very remote on islands that are not on major hubs or do not have a great deal of trade and travel. It's not that they're primitive, but they tend to develop much, much more slowly, or they develop in very insular ways.
Like Madagascar.
See also Japan.
Japan, parts of Polynesia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, their culture becomes incestuous, I think is probably the best technical term to describe it.
Well, let's not use that one, because that can also be literal, and I don't want to infer that.
Well, no one's inferring it,
but
but...
show back up if you use that one.
Yeah, okay.
What I was referring to is I think there's one example of a South Seas island chain that has one island that had was on a major thoroughfare for spices, and so was very, very advanced. And then far enough away with the travel capacity available, there was another island that was not on a main thoroughfare and was at least a century behind its peer in cultural and technological development. Because culture is a function of environment. If your environment gets you to a certain level and then there's no reason to go ahead of that, you trend not to.
Right.
Well, beyond the bikes on this page, not to get completely off topic, but back
on go
topic.
with it.
No, let's go back topics, please. Yeah.
On the further down of this page, I think I see a little bit of the setup for what you were talking about, the espionage caper type scenario where you see, scene by scene, and whoever sets up the paneling, that's one of my favorite things to kind of take note of. I like the dynamic paneling where you don't just go with the square setups or the even keel.
Oh yeah.
I like dynamic paneling. I like full screen pages where it runs off the edge of the page. I like that kind of thing. It's one of my favorite things about indie comics because modern comic
be very.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. I was going to say it can be very easy for people to forget that the panels and the layout of it are as much a facet of storytelling as the actual content in the panel.
No, that's one of the things that I kind of pointed Ayrton to. He actually picked up on something that I didn't pick up on because he's a musician. We were reading a story. What was the name of the title, Ayrton?
Killer Groove.
It was a story about a guy who was a hitman, and he got off on he got musical inspiration from killing people, basically. But the paneling was almost set up in a musical structure, like a long beat, a short beat, a short beat, a short beat, a long beat. And it was almost like mirrored in every comic. Like sometimes it was off, but that would, I don't know, kind of mirror what was going on.
It would accentuate the drama.
And, that's something that we've talked about before, is that paneling is something that you kind of have to, you either have to get right or you have to play safe. And from what I've seen, because I actually have read the 20 page comic, we're just going to do a review at a later date because Ayrton has not read it at this point, I don't believe.
No, I did sign up for the mailing list though.
Hooray! It should be in your inbox right now then.
Yeah.
And then we say hooray.
But we're going to do a full review of it. And like I said, once you do the Indiegogo, we're going to try and have you back on. And even if we don't have you back on, we'll do another show where we can promote the link or whatever. You are doing through Indiegogo, right? I don't think we officially asked that question. I just assume at this point.
Yeah, no, Indiegogo is where we will go to, I believe.
Okay.
I when I was in college and had money to throw around, I in fact picked up both of Scott McCloud's books, How to Read Comics and How to Draw Comics. Devoured them, and one of the things that I used
how were those to pass?
Fiverr.
Oh. Well, since you asked, but the thing is that I when writing the scripts, I prefer to err on the side of giving the artist as much room to be creative as possible.
Right.
Broad beats, but I really do try not to give too specific a description as to what's going on, in part because I could get very, very detailed, and I understand that they only have so much they can draw, based on complexity.
Right.
But one of the things I do keep to is almost the movie cinema thing, where slow scenes and slow content will be on a page with very few panels because they're large and establishing. And then the closer you get to action, the more smaller, focused, sort of beat by beat, breath by breath panels you get. So there's that.
One thing I kind of like in that tactic too is if you're familiar with the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movies.
Yeah.
Where he has the bullet time type thing, where he plans out like his punches and his kicks and his leg sweeps and all that.
Yeah.
I kind of liken the rapid fire panel movement to either that or even the way they shot something like Ocean's 11, where you see like the shifting scenes almost like a PowerPoint presentation during the setup.
Well, the other
heist.
thing, as I mentioned a couple of times, is I'm a big fan of Chinese action films. Oh. And there's this really great YouTube video about how Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee framed their shots, how they actually did the job of filming.
Right.
And Jackie Chan specifically did this thing where he would film a shot from multiple angles, and then when recutting it, would cut it in such a way that you see the action occur, and then you have a close-up on that action, so you get a second, more smooth view of what has occurred, which when put together gives impact to the actions. You know what's going on. You can pace the dance because it's choreographed.
Right.
As Seithon has pointed out, this is mean to our author, and we have to, or our artist rather, and we have to remember they can only do so much. But I'm very much for the realm of clean visuals and serious actions. And yeah, we like a bit of the ultra violence, as you can see.
Yeah. And because you use that word, I'm guessing you're familiar with the old Clockwork Orange, right?
Oh yes, me and my droogs.
How about how about after the show we go out, we get some milk, see what we can get into.
Oh God. Maybe you guys can, but I know exactly what I'm doing after this show.
I understand.
But Seithon, the spice must flow.
Probably taking a shower, right?
No, I already took a shower.
Well, I figured
I'm gonna go hug my therapy dog and try and feel better.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I thought you were gonna fill your bathtub with bleach and just dive right in.
No, I don't have that much bleach.
Well, if European films
you're not
have told me
prepared for
anything,
the woo flu, then.
If European films have taught me anything, Seithon's going to sit in his shower in his clothes and listen to the Crying Game.
Why do you choose to work with this man, Seithon?
Because he antagonizes me and he is cheap. He is very, very...
Man, I talk about the bitch I took to prom better than that.
Hey, you were talking to a guy who literally brought him knee pad the last time he owed me money. And he still owes me money.
But I use them. They protect my little gimp knees so that I don't hurt myself.
Yeah, exactly. Joe and I have a fracture.
If the banter between these two hasn't convinced you to sign up for their mailing list, do it because you're scared Joe will get into your DMs and start lamenting on things.
Yes, I will send Joe to your house to talk at length about things that have upset him.
Well, I mean, I'll just...
You know what? I'm gonna include the bit here that Joe left out. The entire reason we got into comic book writing is I got so fucking sick of listening to him complain about how badly written comics were that I told him, Joe, if you're so fucking good, write a bloody comic yourself. And then he went away and did it.
And I did. Now look where you are.
I know. Surrounded by drunk Americans. And 5 in the morning.
Look, it's not my fault you can't have
I
a
had
good
a
pint.
beer. I'm not drunk.
You're drunk on life.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But no, Eve.
Wasn't your mother's breast milk like at least 5% alcohol when you were growing up?
No.
Oh.
What, the drunk Irish meme is just a meme? It's not true? What are you telling me?
Yeah.
You guys don't fight with shillelaghs and whatnot?
No.
I would make jokes, but
That's what the Armorites.
I would make jokes, but I have to work with this man.
At least tell me you have a top hat.
No.
I do. I have a top hat.
He has a top hat.
And
As long as one of you has a top hat, I'm sold.
He also has a monocle.
Oh no, it gets better. I have a monocle. I have a pocket watch. I have a top hat. I have a
I have a
bowler
few
hat.
pocket watches.
I have a fedora, and I have.
Wait.
Warcraft,
Hold on. Is it a fedora?
Wait.
Or an actual? Is it a fedora like Indiana Jones wore and fucking Al Capone wore, or is it a trilby? One of those like fake fedoras that neckbeards wear.
I have both.
If you burn that trilby, I can respect you again. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I don't know. I bought that trilby in Vegas.
That's all the like. What happens
It's
in
probably
Vegas
got
stays in
life.
Vegas.
That's a weird name for a stripper.
Well, the thing is that I am a gamer nerd, and it really appeals to me to.
You need the trilby to tip to milady. I understand.
No. It
No,
really
wrong
appeals to
type of
me.
gamer.
No. It really appeals to me to play a vampire wearing a hat that has a little metal clip on it that's a D.
Yeah, the thing is Joe is not talking about video games. He's talking about LARPing. He's one of those people.
And tabletop RPGs. I do both. I'm an old school grognard.
Yeah.
I'm playing
I
my
also
first-
play the video and the games.
Can I make a? I need to derail this real quick. Speaking of LARPing,
Derail it real quick,
out with
motherfucker. When did we get back on the rails?
We barely got back up on topic.
I'm derailing the derailment.
You're gonna
Me
get
and
us
a buddy
okay.
a couple summers ago. We were out riding our motorcycles around, and we pull into a park to kind of look for a restaurant or something around. And it's like a state park, and we had to drive down, probably half mile to find somewhere to park. And all of a sudden, there's just like a group of like 20, 30 LARPers out in this field with their fake swords and stuff.
Oh no!
And we just pulled over and just died laughing and just like sat back and watched for like 20 minutes and before we decided to keep going.
No, see, it's weird. I have this love-hate relationship with LARP because I hate the BS politics of the LARP groups in which I occasionally participate. But at the same time, I always point out to people who are on the fence, it's like, no. Those people running around in parks are the worst kind of LARPers that make all of us look bad. There are those who look really good and understand that they are pretending and that they have to interact with the rest of the world, and they don't go around doing that. And this is someone who grew up in a family that my parents used to do SCA, which is actual historical recreation and makes sense.
Well, speaking of LARPing,
That was great. I stole one of their little like
Hey,
pouch things of like
Ayrton.
magic
Shut
that
up.
they throw
Stop
at each
talking.
other.
Ayrton,
Oh, God,
stop
no.
talking. Ayrton, no, we're done. We're done. We're going to talk
Okay.
about LARPing, and we're going to talk about LARPing as characters from the Executioner, so that I can pull up this.
Okay. So I'm dead body number 6.
Yeah, you are. Speaking of self-inserts into the Executioner here, we've had one of our very long-term loyal friends actually commission us to do a 5-page comic of a character of his in the Executioner setting.
Okay.
So that's coming up too.
All right.
And we're hoping to do more stuff like that too.
Is that breaking news? Is that brand new? Did that just happen?
No, it happened last week. I'm afraid
Okay.
it's not exclusive news to this channel, but it's not exactly well known either.
I mean,
Christ.
on the other hand, I wrote that script in like an hour and a half.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I just hammered
Don't
that.
tell him that. Oh wait.
Ayrton, clip that out so we can send it on Twitter.
Damn you!
Why do you not want people to know, Seithon, that your author is qualified and works fast?
Because, Joseph, it's really difficult to charge people the prices I do for the work you do, because they know how fast you do it.
Well, yeah, but Seithon, the artist is still excellent. They're
Yeah,
largely paying
Speaking
for
of
the
excellent
visual.
artwork, let's talk about this design for the Executioner.
Okay.
Yes,
I'm
let's
trying
do that.
real hard here, guys.
What is that? Segue number 23.
Ah, damn it.
It's not me doing it anymore, Seithon. It's your writer. Fire him. I don't know.
You started it.
I invited you on my show.
Learned it.
I gave you my channel
learned it
so you
by
could know what
watching
you were
you.
getting into.
I learned it by watching you.
God damn it.
Anyway, so oh god,
You're fired.
who's fired?
Oh god.
Did I just get fired from my own show?
I was firing Joe for Seithon.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm out.
Be
So-
gone.
You told us earlier that it was a female in the Executioner armor. Now,
This is the original design for her, yeah.
okay, and we saw earlier what her design changed into. What else I've got in that regard?
Yeah, I think you've got the poster I sent you there of her current state of appearance.
That's
Changed
the
hugely.
the Gorgon one.
No, the Gorgon one is the other lady. It's Gina. Gina.
Gina. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
There we go. She's almost like a redheaded female Guile.
Yeah, I suppose so. She is former military, so that would make sense.
But
Oh no,
Now-
Church is koofing.
that wasn't me.
Oh no.
I mute when I coof. I don't want anybody to be scared. I'm gonna get all of y'all. But well, I pulled her up so you could tell her. Tell us about her. Like,
Yeah,
what are
yeah.
you doing, Seithon?
Sure. I am standing here and I'm playing with some lollipop sticks.
He's already checked out, folks. The show has defeated him. 111-0.
Yeah.
Gina is a U.S. Marine Corps.
Was it Marine Corps? Did we even decide on that branch?
It was absolutely Marine.
Oh, okay.
Because the thing is that she is referred to in comic as a G.I. Jane.
Okay.
They straight up point out that she is solidly one of those girls that wants to play with the boys and wants to be in the elite. But she decided that the Marine Corps was not elite enough. She wanted to go that special forces. She wanted to be not just the best of the best, but the best. And that was applying for the Spartan training program, where you go to Polis, the island nation of the Spartan warriors, to
Right.
learn how to do what they do. Hence the tattoo on her shoulder.
Oh, I was going to leave that as an Easter egg for people to notice, but okay. Yeah.
I tell you, we have a small audience. No one will see how embarrassing this has been.
Except for my parents.
You see, that is both a good thing and a bad thing, because on the one hand, I want the exposure, but it's a good thing because, oh my god, the exposure. I didn't want to be exposed quite like this.
The
Watch,
thing,
our channel just blows up overnight from this interview.
That's right.
The thing about Gina is she actually washes out of the Spartan training program because she's at one point presented with a choice to either compromise on her ethics, or to refuse an order, and she chooses to refuse. And though she's given all of the conciliatory, we're not punishing you, she
Right.
gets punished for it.
Right.
And that brings her into the sphere of her mentor, the original executioner, who is like, they didn't want you, but I don't waste talent. If you work for me, I can give you what you want, or at least a purpose.
Yeah. Beyond that, she's a Boston Irish girl, so, horrible, horrible Irish accent, but,
Does she say wicked hot?
redhead, green eyes.
Does she say wicked a lot?
I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, she doesn't, but I now want to have a scene somewhere where she does something cool and is actually like wicked.
No, she's got to say that's wicked awesome. That's a Boston thing. You got to watch 30 Rock, but there's a redheaded freckled chick in there that she says, that's wicked hot.
I mean, if I do it, I also have to show her mentor rolling his eyes and looking utterly disgusted at the same time. But
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what people do.
Just have Seithon model that for you.
Yeah. Just ask him to selfie anytime you speak during a live stream. Am I right or am I right?
I am glad I took. I'm glad I took my medication for this show. I don't think I would have survived it otherwise.
Oh, so I'm not the only one on drugs here.
No, I'm medication for bills right now.
Well, just for clarity, while some of you are partaking of alcohol and Seithon is medicated up to the gills, I have taken that I have taken that ibuprofen so that I don't have my unspeakable muscular pain. So we're all doing good.
Yeah.
Here's your diversity points. I am a disabled person. I have cerebral palsy.
We actually already have our diversity points from a disabled person. Crippled Jesus came on the show like 5 times before you ever got here. So we got a guy in the chair who lost his virginity to a stripper.
Wow, cool.
But no, sir, CP, how does that go as far as like your day to day? Like how far along is it?
It is not so severe that I require a chair, or indeed that if I was sitting down as I am now, you could tell. Like I look normal, I can function. I'm obviously a bit quick on the take.
Right.
But if I get up, if I have to get up and wander around, I walk funny. I'm never going to get that football scholarship, and it
I don't know. The Panthers are looking this year, from what I heard.
Look, you can join my Blood Bowl league. That's as close as we're getting. The thing is that I have it has its stealth difficulties.
Right.
I have back and leg and sometimes arm pains, and that stuff can be really taxing. It makes finding the go energy to both hold down a job, maintain a grown-up life, and work on comics difficult. But anything worth doing is difficult.
Oh yeah, no pain, no gain, like straight up.
Yeah.
But I'm doing this show when I know it means that I'm going to have to stay up until 6 a.m. working on my real job. So I mean, I understand. But if it wasn't for doing the show, my wife would probably have stabbed me to death in my sleep for bothering her about comic books for the 4th year in a row.
It's 10 to 9 here. I'm fine, but at the same time, I got to be up at this time, 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, to go keep an eye on my mom, a double amputee with diabetes, while my old man goes to the food bank. So I mean, do I get time off? Not really.
No. You as an adult, like I think that's the defining moment of being an adult. You realize that time off is really just time on to do other things that you have neglected because you have to work a real job.
In matter of point, just before this show, I was getting barraged with phone calls and besieged to make sure that I was on time, because I was like, well, there's an hour till show. I guess I better go take out that trash and make my sandwich and get my coffee before the show starts, which I did. Yay, accomplishment.
I managed to get some ice and some whiskey, so adulting.
Hey, everybody has different levels of accomplishment.
I have 3 children, so whiskey is accustomed to getting a regular drink.
That's just medication, sir.
That's right. That's right. I'm going to be able to sleep tonight. Now I've got up on screen the design of the Spartans, and you have 2 different names, which I assume will be at least notable characters at some point or another.
Yeah, they're the Furies that you would have seen getting the stuffing beaten out of them, the original designs for them. And that's the original armor-based design for Spartan Furies as well. So
let me ask the controversial question. Let me ask the spiciness. I know I've held
Here we go.
enough. But why such a female-centric book? Now, I'm not bashing it by any means. Don't get defensive. But why such a female-centric book?
No.
Accident. We wrote it like
it just happened that way. It was completely natural and good storytelling, as opposed to we have to write women.
Well, here's what happened. Okay.
Because titties.
Well, yeah, the boobs help. Here's what happened. All right. We started out with the Executioner just being a concept. We didn't have anything for them as a defining trait or anything. We just knew they were a person who killed superheroes who were misbehaving.
Right.
And for an example of a superhero misbehaving, we were like, well, Wonder Woman's Greek. The Greeks like doing weird things with young people. So what if we had Wonder Woman who did weird things with young people in our setting, and the Executioner is sent out to kill them? That was the original idea. So we're like, okay, so we've got our main antagonist being this Wonder Woman type who does horrible things. Where are they from? What are they doing? Well, let's have our own version of Themyscira. So that's Polis. There's the people on it. We don't want them to be Athenians because they're boring. I was playing Civ 6 at the time. There was Gorgo, who was the alternate leader for Greece. The Spartans, they're interesting. They actually have a history of strong female leadership in their culture, unlike the Athenians, who treated their women like cattle. So we're like, okay, let's take them, put them here. Now, we've got them being the antagonists because they do horrible things to good people. And then we were like, okay, who is the Executioner? We came up with Carl originally. And, we just kept on working from there, iterating over it. And along the way, Gina just kind of evolved out of it. We were like, okay, we've got this person who was going to join them, discovered their darker side, decided didn't like it. But wait a second, if you're going to join them, you've got to be a woman, so it's a female character. Therefore, it can't be Carl, but we want to have Carl there too, so we moved Carl back in the timeline, and now we have Gina and Carl. So that's kind of how it all evolved.
The other thing is we were looking at the Gorgon as a character, and we were like, okay, so we're going to have the Gorgon, and we're going to have the Executioner, and they are diametrically opposed antagonists. And then we said, well, wait a minute, this doesn't really have the feeling or the patina or the intention of a Batman and a Joker or a Superman and a Lex Luthor. And we were like, well, how would we do this? So we went digging around in Greek mythology and lore, and I came across the idea of the Furies, these 3 ostensibly female spirits of strife and punishment, right? And said, hey, Seithon, what if we have our Wonder Woman alike in the form of the Gorgon, and instead of just being like I'm a diplomat, but not really, she's like both a diplomat and the manager leader of a super team. Right? Because you've got all of these superpowered super warriors standing around. They should be doing something. So, you have Spartans. All the Spartans are genetically augmented, excellent warriors, refined craftspeople. And then you have their version of the best. They're Furies. And the three Furies who work directly for the Gorgon are the very best of those, who are named after the mythological Furies. So it's essentially you have the Executioner fighting the Spartan version of the Justice League.
Yeah. And it's also worth noting that our writing changed over time because we realized we didn't want to make Gorgon, our antagonist, just be the antagonist, because that's really boring. I mean, I understand the appeal of white hat, black hat stuff, but it's more interesting when there's some shades of grey going on, especially since our main character, the Executioner, is in a fairly morally grey place anyway. So we have some interesting ideas kicking around for doing an actual comic centered on the Gorgon as a protagonist. So there's that as well.
Most of our antagonists seem to be centered in and around government bodies and the idea of bureaucratic blindness, but also trying to be a little more focused than, say, Marvel is, who doesn't seem to understand what a government does and has never heard of a checks and balances system.
Well, one thing that I can say is that with the idea of not having the whole white hat, black thing, good guy, bad guy, you kind of get into a situation which is one thing that I think DC did really well with the DC television show series like The Flash and the Green Arrow and all that shit, where you can bring somebody like Captain Cold or other villains into the Legends of Tomorrow as good guys because they've kind of their ideologies have shifted and they realize the stakes are bigger. Mr. Freeze is only a bad guy when you realize that he's robbing banks. Is he really still a bad guy when he's robbing banks and jewelry stores to keep his wife alive?
The only caveat to that, because I completely agree, is that we would aim, in my opinion, to be more like Arrow seasons 1 through 2. I pretty much stopped watching. I stopped watching at the mid-season break. Spoilers for people who are not paying attention. When Ollie was taken out by Ra's al Ghul.
Right.
Yeah.
Because as much as a downer ending as that would be, that was also the best ending for that story. Because even at that time, it was starting to wear a little thin. The hardship for Felicity Smoke, a character I liked at the beginning, who just they dragged down Green Arrow in the soap opera, really
like
hard.
They did Harley Quinn in the movies.
I have been actively avoiding those for a number of reasons.
It's true though. I mean, sometimes watching the journey of the character attempting to redeem themselves or find new meaning in their life is more interesting than watching yet another Clark Kent come out of Smallville being a goody two-shoes his entire life and continuing to be a goody two-shoes forever. So that is something we want to explore if we have the time and the interest from people purchasing and signing up to our comic.
In full matter of point, and it's one of the ways in which we avoid the Ma Women tag. Carl and Gina both are very damaged people in different ways. Their relationship, while non-romantic, is essentially codependent in a way that is counter to a lot of the strong woman narratives in media. We do not advocate the idea that Gina's lifestyle is one you should aspire to. nor do we necessarily lay the blame at any one particular individual. It's more that they thought they understood the way the world works, and when they found out that it was not how they thought the world works, it hurt them like a person.
But they were kind of already too deep into it to get out, though.
Right. Once you are built for essentially war, once you're given to the core and you believe in the ethos of that code that you swore to protect your country, that you never come back from that. You're fundamentally changed. And, Gina's question more than Carl's question is there life after this? And ostensibly, Carl, who we're looking at right here in his power wheelchair.
And his original 1920s outfit.
Yeah. He says there is life after this, but it's sort of the life you make of it. For Carl, this is it. This is all he ever wanted to do. Gina, I think as a character, if we had more time and more comic, might want to be other things, or at least might flirt with the idea of one day, stepping away, and could be a story of triumph where she does that. Could be a story of tragedy where she realizes there is no escape.
Well, I haven't told Joe about it yet, but I already have a second arc planned out for Gina that we can discuss later. Where he can't ruin it in front of an entire live stream by telling everyone everything so they don't have to read the comic.
No,
well, they still read the comic.
They do.
Now,
in fact, anyone who's listening to this, it's now mandated that you have to read the comic.
That's correct. Yes.
So go buy it.
That's right.
I can get behind that.
Now, because I'm a gracious and understanding host, I definitely want to thank our guest for staying on with us for this long. But I'm going to go ahead and try and wrap up here so that I can give Seithon an opportunity to depart, because it's 5 o'clock where he is.
Precious sleep.
I want to thank him doubly for coming on, not only on short notice, but with a bunch of drunk Americans that said he could not only not say the N-word, but not use the F slur. And he's so wholesome that I had to explain to him what the F slur was.
Do you mean superlative?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've said it now. It's out.
Yeah. Okay. Fire at you. Yes, that is true. Cultural differences.
Right.
We don't really use those words, so it didn't even occur to me.
Well, over there, one of those words refers to a cigarette, if I'm not mistaken.
The first 3 letters do, sure. But even so, most people don't do that these days anyway. And I mean, the full thing actually describes a bundle of sticks, but good luck trying to convince anyone of that.
I've been a strong proponent of that as well. But.
If Seithon says the word, does he explode?
No.
No,
okay, so you're not like Bender's ass. Okay.
No, I just have to clip the video, and I don't like doing that because I'm lazy.
So you're just gonna get a whole stream of both of those really quickly as we end the show.
Oh God, no.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. Yeah, no, it has been a pleasure, and hopefully we can come back on and have a discussion about the comic.
Now,
once you guys have had a chance to read it.
You have to give me credit. I did try and get it back there a few times. You invited the writer. No, I invited you.
Yeah, I know. That was on me. That was on me. Next time I'm putting Joe back in his cage.
I think we actually did address the comic in there, Seithon. Just
I know.
Tangents happen.
He's all business, no pleasure.
I kind of am.
If it's any just consolation, this has been one of the most fun shows I've had in a little while. I haven't worried about coronavirus one time in like an hour and a half.
Wait, you want to know something fun? One of our artists might have it.
Wait, seriously?
God damn it!
Yeah. He went to he's one of our artists. He's in the Philippines. He went to a convention and he came back with a nasty cough, and now he's very unwell, but he is recovering.
Do you think we could get more sign up if we said that we would give some of the proceeds of successful publication to combating coronavirus so that our artists can live?
No, don't do that.
Oh, actually, if this might actually be interesting. I don't know if anyone else though. Instead of your traditional comic book thing where you put it out there and then you just keep all the profit for yourself, which admittedly is a tempting offer, but instead we're doing a thing where we're taking all the profit we make from this and we're going to divide it up into shares between the artists and the writers and all that. So it's basically the better we do as a group, the better everyone does. So it's not just all going to one person. So I suppose that is perhaps something we're doing that is, I don't know if it's unique, but it's certainly something a bit different.
Now,
it's also how we're convincing some of them to work for reduced rates, but that's beside the point.
Now, I want to tell you before I ask you this question that you did this to you.
Who did what to me?
You did this to you.
You'll find out.
Okay. Now, with that particular, payment scale in mind, are you still doing the whole stretch goal thing, like where you have bonuses for so many, so many dollars after the initial goal, et cetera, or is it going to be
sort of? Yeah, we have some predefined goals. For example, our initial stretch or initial goal is going to be we want to print the book. It'll be in black and white. So you'll get it in line work initially. If we get enough money to pay for the color artist, yay, color. And, just on and on and on. The idea being that if we can
get
produce
the words after that, and then
yeah,
the binding and the cover.
There's no letters in the book.
Yeah, exactly. If you back us enough, you'll get this half of the alphabet, and then you'll get the other half later.
Just the consonants, and then
exactly.
Another couple of grand, you get the vowels too.
Yeah. It'll be like that Wheel of Fortune game you guys have over there. You guys can buy a letter.
That's it. 26 stretch goals, one for each letter.
There you go. And then don't forget the punctuation.
Oh man,
we can squeeze a whole lot of money out of this.
Is it bold and italics?
Yeah. What about different fonts?
Hey, oh god, another 52 of them.
Hey, if you really want to get nasty, you can sell plural.
Oh, shut up.
Hey,
goddamn American.
If I want to buy 2 A's, you can't stop me.
Yeah. No, it's it's really the case that the stretch goals are going to be a matter of we can now afford to do this or we can now afford to do that, rather than being we will give you some shiny doodad.
Okay.
I actually have already made arrangements with local printers. I am very lucky that there are 3 printing companies within walking distance of me. They are all able to produce at very high quality at reasonable prices. So that's already done. Ireland has cheap shipping to everywhere in the world, so that isn't an issue for us. A lot of the business stuff is already squared away for us. So we've been able to price out most things to know, how much it's going to cost to do various things. Originally, we wanted to do all the 4 books that we have planned as one big book, but then we realized the cost to do that would be in like the 10 to 20k range, and that would be too much for a first-time Kickstarter Indiegogo campaign to do.
Wait, you mean you guys aren't going to fall into the grittiest trap?
The what trap?
There was a creator who put out an Indiegogo for Detective Dead, and he raised $38,000. Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, I've heard of that in passing, and I really don't want to get too involved in that.
No, I'm not.
Sure.
I'm not asking you to get involved, but I'm saying you guys are looking to avoid the trap where you shoot too high and can't land in the stars even.
Yeah, no, we have very defined goals. That's why we aren't promising a huge amount of stretch goals, because like this is what we're offering you, and the only stretch goal is color, and that's only because the color artist is way more expensive than everyone else. His art is worth it, but it's basically doubling the price effectively of producing the comic to go to color. So that's why it's a stretch goal and not in there at the base, because it's easier.
I'm sorry.
It's easier to ask for, like, hey, look, we need 4,000 to do this, rather than say, oh, hey, we need 6,000 to do this at all, and that's not even including any buffer money for unforeseen stuff. So that'd be more like 8,000 for color,
And as I've mentioned before, if this does well, if this model works, I have a real hope that we'll be able to expand out and give other people opportunity to get their stuff printed under our imprint.
At least using our infrastructure, because we do have reliable printers that we can work with. I know a lot of people on Indiegogo right now, they're like, okay, we'll produce all our comics in the States, and by the way, if you want to ship it to Europe, it's an extra $30 or something crazy like that. Right. Whereas I could probably get it printed down the road for about $2.
I'm just saying that one of the things that we discovered in this journey was how difficult it was to get attention and to get into the network of people and communicating to find resources. I'd really like to help throw out a ladder to the next guy who wants to make a comic and has a really good idea. I think that the comics as a community and an industry should be more open to getting more product out there, not to flood the market, but to put more quality on the market, because we relative to that concept that was being discussed earlier, the unwillingness to take risk because corporate feels safe in established characterization. We need more. We need not diversity of character visuals, but we need a diversity of ideas to get the comics industry really rolling like it should be going.
Yeah. And we have also toyed with the idea of making things somewhat open so that we can bring in other creators and be like, hey, you want to play around in our setting? Here you go. We'll give you some guidance, some ground rules, bring us a story, and if it's good, we'll put it in front of our fans and say, hey, do you want to back this as a story? Stuff like that. We
now,
have
is that open to anyone with a good idea? Because I invented a superhero recently.
Oh boy, go on. I wanted to say, by the way, just before we get into that, one of our plans tier rewards is that you literally get to design your own character in setting. So, start saving up your pennies and you can probably do that.
Well, see, mine, it's a twist on the Green Lantern Corps. It's the
I've got it up on
and
screen.
I'm sure Church might. Okay, he's got it up on screen. It's the Autistic Lantern. So, whereas like instead of willpower gives him more strength and stuff, the more autistic he is, the stronger he becomes, and so he'll like smash his head on the wall to get more power. He'll lick his own eyeballs to moisten them if they start to dry out when he's flying really fast.
So what you're saying is
his arch enemy is the chromosome burglar who goes around stealing chromosomes from people. That's about as far as I've gotten.
What you're saying is you just want us to make you a Bizarro comic with a bicycle helmet.
Yeah, more or less.
I suppose it's a bad time for me to mention that I'm autistic, isn't it? You let your friend do that after I told you before the start of the show, you bastard.
It's a spectrum.
I would have let him do it even if you had told me. I'm not gonna lie. You seem like the kind of guy that can laugh at a
No, I
joke.
know you would have. Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. Oh dear.
I think we just need to end the show there at this point.
Well, I mean, I've been
Yeah,
trying to end it.
probably might be a good idea.
I've been trying to end it for 15 minutes now. Like, I did this, and then our guest went on and made me ask another question.
Good
Oh,
night,
yeah, that's
everybody.
right. Blame us. Good night.
Always leave them wanting more.
Thank you guys very much for coming on. I greatly appreciate it.
You're
I look
welcome.
forward to having you both back on later on, where we can have a proper
Absolutely.
discussion about the Executioner once you launch your campaign on Indiegogo. Sign up for the mailing list in the description down below, everyone. If you're watching this video, you'll see it. You can also follow Archetype Comics on Twitter at the @follow down below. Now,
Absolutely.
any final words, guys?
Epstein didn't kill himself.
That's correct. Ayrton, get us out of here.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.